Hello, I'm Maria Hall Brown, and this is LA Currents. Prompted by the Watts unrest in 1966, the Human Relations Commission of Los Angeles promotes communication and peace building by interaction through the communities. I'm delighted today to be joined by the president of the Human Relations Commission, Anthony Mack. So nice to have you here.
Pleasure to be here, and thank you so much for inviting me down on behalf of our wonderful commission, the Commission of Human Relations. Thank you so much.
You got it. Well, all right, so let's do the basics first. The Human Relations Commission is actually appointed individuals from the community that help foster communication through different organizations and relay it back to the city, correct?
That's correct. In fact, before going any further, I just have to thank our mayor, Mayor Eric Garcetti. Each commissioner is actually appointed by the mayor to sit for a specified period of time. And we come from a whole host of backgrounds, various communities, deliberately to properly reflect the diversity of our beautiful city of Los Angeles.
How long have you been part of the commission?
So I'm going to my third year, believe it or not,
Wow.
which my hair probably shows. But I'm going to my third year, and it's been an honor to serve.
And so some of the other commissioners, I mean, how are they chosen and what, you said they reflect the community at large, and what type of reflection are we seeing? Who are they?
Thanks for asking. We're so fortunate, so blessed. We've got commissioners from our Latino community. We have commissioners from our Sikh community. We have commissioners served from our Filipino community. Of course, African American community, the transgender community. We have so many communities that are being reflective, and this is purposely done as our commission was formed years ago, as you pointed out, to actually serve the diversity and the inequities that unfortunately have been around for years. And we look to put together programs and initiatives to actually help bring proper balance to our communities and communication, which is key.
Well, communication is key, but an interesting thing now is that although the commission has been around since 1966, you're now working rather closely with an LA department that was recently created, the Civil and Human Rights and Equity Department, known as LA Civil Rights. So how has that cooperative effort worked, and how, what's the process of kind of getting them up to speed and you working with them?
That was a brilliant creation, and again by our mayor Eric Garcetti, and we owe a lot of thanks to him. And what a time like today, we're seeing a lot of inequities, a lot of civil liberties, civil rights that are being broken and challenged. I thought as a youth growing up in Los Angeles since the age of 8, I thought that a lot of these inequities over time would disappear by the time I was a white-haired adult, right? And so here we are today, and we're still battling a lot of the same equities. But the idea was to bring about, basically, you have two arms, right? You have the arm that takes action from a legality standpoint. Then you have the arm that's actually the communication, kind of the liaison between the city of LA and the communities that we represent.
Okay, so, all of you come from a corporate land, a corporate world. You're not city employees, you're not part of city government, and you yourself have a really remarkable background in owning restaurants and so how are you feeding that into, because I know that you work with a wide constituency of employees, so how are your background skills being able to help you as a commissioner?
Great question. Each one of my colleagues, not just myself, you're right, we bring our own specific experiences and professional expertise. But what's most important is that we are community folk first. We are public servants first. And we are charged to the best of our ability when we come to serve without a specific lens, but to serve as open as possible to actually absorb and understand the pains and the equities of the variety of communities that surround the table every commission meeting that we have as we're working on programs. And I think that's what purposely makes this commission so effective, because we're from the community that we are selected to serve. And at the same time, we as individuals, we've walked in the shoes of some of these inequities of life experiences. And so we can kind of speak to a certain degree, but we still have a long way to go in terms of making sure that we have all the proper voices at the table as we're trying to figure out what programs to put together to bring about unity.
I hope you don't mind me bringing it up, but before we actually sat at the table, you were talking about growing up, and some of the things that you thought about and felt as a young man in Los Angeles growing up, and the struggles that you had.
Absolutely.
How did you get through them, and how did you feel as a young man here?
Yeah, no, you're right. There were a number of struggles growing up in the city. I was very blessed, but again, the same with even my colleagues that serve on the commission. We all have stories. My particular situation, I was blessed to have both parents in the household all my life. Both are social workers.
Oh.
And my dad was specifically a civil rights leader, and just a community servant.
Apple doesn't fall far.
No, it doesn't. Well, he set the example. And my mother was just a dedicated, loyal supporter. In fact, if it wasn't for my mom, there's no way in the world my dad could have done what he did over the years. But I try my best, even though there's a lot of temptations as a youth over the years. I try my best to stay on the right path. As my folks were saying, just follow their lead. Growing up in LA, it's it's a major city with the second business media market, in our country, and there's a lot that takes place. There's a lot of temptations. There's a lot of challenges that, as a youth, you'd find yourself confronted with, and that's where, we're all we're makeup of our environment. So it's so important, if you've got a chance, you've been fortunate, blessed enough to have been raised, by some folks that care about you, whether it's your parents, your grandmother, your guardian, that aunt, that uncle, that grandma, whatever. If they stay in your ear enough, which fortunately, my mother stayed in my ear enough, that kind of keeps you on the right track. And so.
But you watched others around you not stay on that route.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. No, I've had many, friends, associates that I grew up in the community that they weren't as fortunate. And I think back, and you think back on many forks in the road that you could have gone. All you had to do is go the wrong direction, and it could have completely changed, how life has turned out. And so that's why personally, and I can assure you, my colleagues that serve on the commission alongside of me, that's why we feel so passionately in terms of, voluntarily to serve. And that's what we bring to the table. We never forget where we came from. We never forget whether it's that parent or that grandmother or that whoever, that older brother, older sister that stayed on you constantly. We realize that we're not here because we did it on our own. We stand on the shoulders of mentors that stayed on us, and so we feel that it's our duty to give back. I remember when my father passed away. My family was blessed enough to have Mayor Eric Garcetti. He actually attended the funeral, and I ran into him near the end, and I just shared with him that I wanted to serve. If there's ever an opportunity to serve, I'd love to know how. And he was kind enough to give me his card, told me to contact his secretary, and
here we are.
The rest is history. A man as busy, a leader as busy as he, and he's amazingly, we're very lucky to have him.
And the power of listening. But we should clarify your father, his name and what he did.
Oh yeah, well, John Mack. He's legendary in our city, in the country, and there's not a day or a week that doesn't go by that I don't think about him. There's not a meeting that I serve I don't think about my father. But my father couldn't have done what he did if it wasn't for his fantastic, amazing staff of volunteers, some of whom still serve to this day. And so that's thank God for those servants and individuals such as Mark Brown, Larry McCormick, individuals like yourself that are just as much a part of amplifying the voice of the struggle.
Well, I'm going to put myself in a different room. Thank you for saying that. So obviously, Mayor Garcetti heard you, understood you, and now you're on this commission. And the commission itself, as it, your job is to listen to the community. So how, in a practical nature, does this work? And then once you have these meetings, what are you looking for, and what are you doing with the information?
Our commission, and frankly, the Civil Rights Department, would not be here if it wasn't for Eric Garcetti approving it. And his department, frankly, allowing us to do what we do. And frankly, city council members as well, that they listen as well, and we listen to them and try to understand the current critical needs of the city as we strategize what we're going to do. But listening is critical, and that is first and foremost. And what we do is listen to the community. For example, back in 2018, we had what was created as the Dinner Dialogues that was birthed out of our commission. A lot of hard work done, some key members off our commission, and that was that started and ended with listening to the community and to the concerns of LAPD law enforcement to bridge or to bring together the underserved communities and to get an understanding because of just the years and history of not listening to one another. And it's paid off. Years later today, we finalized the report. LAPD has actually utilized that report, learned a lot from it, adjusted all sorts of things in their training and the way they approach and interact with the community, thanks to Chief Michael Moore, really taking it to heart. And our community is listening. I think we've seen a lot, and we've actually benefited from that type of communication and listening in recent events. Many people probably would have thought that we'd have had a riot by now, but there's been more calmness, even though there's still tension, but there's been that constant dialogue, that constant communication, that constant listening. And so
I think everyone should read these reports, by the way. I mean, not just those that are the players in the game, because when I was looking through it, I was fascinated to hear a young man say that I want to know the police officers in my neighborhood as much as I know my postal worker. I want the police to know that I understand where they're coming from because I'm walking around looking tough so that I can actually walk safely from point A to point B. But I get it that I'm looking like somebody who might be doing something that would cause a problem in the community. I mean, just anecdotal pieces of information like that really kind of redirect your thought process.
No, you're spot on, Maria. That report was years of hard work, a lot of bending and flexing from the community side, law enforcement side, the city side. Thank goodness for our administration that supports our commission. They work behind the scenes to really help us, organize the dinner dialogues. But no, listening to the community members, the stakeholders of the community in terms of, what it's like in the community shoes, in our shoes every day, just to basically survive. And at the same time to do the right thing and frankly not to be harassed in an inequitable fashion. It's a fine line. I mean, it's hard to understand where someone's coming from unless you've walked in their shoes. And so there's a lot that came out of those reports. That was the first generation, and hopefully this is just the beginning, and we're gonna get the funding to actually build upon that report. Frankly, we need to go back to the stakeholders and communities, and we want to report back to them and really continue to build on what we learn.
Because you'd think, all right, since the commission's been around since 1966, and there was that unrest in Watson, 1966, about the same time, the charter of the city, but you hope that things have improved, but the last 2 years have demonstrated that we still have an enormous amount of work to do. the increase in hate crimes, the obvious inequities that have been demonstrated in a vast array of components of this city. Are you feeling optimistic? Are you feeling pessimistic? Are you feeling like this is a good thing that now there's a stronger spotlight, so maybe there'll be more focus on what the commission can do and how that can relate to LA Civil Rights Department? I mean, where are you in the grand scheme of looking at the whole problem?
Well,
that's a convoluted question, but
yeah,
pull
it is.
out
But
a
it's
piece
a
that
great.
you want.
It's a great. No, it's a great. It is. But it's a great question. And before I even answer, I want to give thanks to our prior president, Commissioner Angelica Solis Montero, and Stacey Tweley. They served as our second and first vice president. And in fact, Commissioner Montero, she just stepped down as a president, and I just came in behind her. But we discuss these things often during our executive meetings in terms of where our city is, where things are, and you hit on a key touch point as we're coming up on the 30th anniversary year of the '92 riot, right? And that's an area that we're looking closely at as a commission in terms of from a programming piece. Let's just be frank. We've got a long way to go. We've taken as many steps we took forward over the past 10, 15 years. Sad to say, we've taken a number of steps back. We could point to a number of factors. We've had a lot of our great leaders. You mentioned my father that have transitioned on, right? And so now we're in this lull point, the emergence of new leadership. It's critical. You and I were discussing, where is the voice in the room of our youth? Because I assure you that our youth, many of whom weren't even born during the '92 riots, for example, looking at the state of affairs today, they're going to have a much more fascinating view of what their thoughts of where we need to go, what we should or should not be doing, versus just our opinions, right?
Sure.
We came up during a time where automatically in our household, after high school, you'd go to college. Well, now, I just read an article, and the question of whether college is even relevant to a lot of youth now, they're, for a number of reasons which are obvious.
And even if it is, can they go because of the cost?
Can they go because of the cost? Exactly. And so, yes, we've come a long way, but I'm extremely concerned. Hatred is at an all-time level. I mean, who'd ever thought that we'd reach a point where you need literally major armed security guards just to go to a place of worship, as we view that happen in the synagogue in Texas. We pray for those folks. It's just, we're very much a divided nation right now, but we still have hope. And that is the reason that our commission was created and founded, and that is the reason why we have the Civil Rights Department led by the great Capri Maddox, who's doing a phenomenal job. And we share, as I'm sure you're aware, we share along with a couple other commissions under the roof of our new office right here in downtown City Hall.
Okay, so under your leadership, where do you see the priorities? Where do you want to focus your attention? Obviously, there's a vast array of challenges, and we're talking about even the perception of the police, et cetera, but there are a lot more areas of inequity that need to be addressed. So where do you think we need to start?
Well, let me say this. It's a great question. Again, with our great Vice President, Angelica Montero, and Stacey Tweley and our commissioner body, we are really right now honing in on just that in terms of the way we're strategizing out this year and looking at it. I can assure you one thing we do want to do is I'd like to see, and that is to lean heavily on the mission of our commission, which is eradicating discrimination, programs that are going to address the hate crimes that have been really rising as of late, the inequities that have been exposed from things such as COVID and just flaws, not only with law enforcement, but just like our medical system, the way things are flowing out from the COVID. So one area that we're really focused on, again, with the 30th anniversary coming up with the 92 riots, we're going to be looking at how can we re-engage and listen to the community, continue what the good work we've been doing, listen to the community, the stakeholders of the community, work with our leadership here at City Hall, out of the mayor's office, and continue to identify programs that are going to continue to bridge all of our communities together that may have differences or that are not talking, not at the table together per se. There was a time where we were all at the table together, and now we're kind of operating in silos.
Definitely.
We've got to come back to the table together, and because we do not want to repeat what happened, following the '92 situation.
So, obviously, you work with LA Civil Rights, but what are some of the other city departments that are interested in what the commission is able to glean from the community, and what can they do with the information? So, I mean, I would think that law enforcement, you mentioned law enforcement,
Absolutely.
but who else really wants to hear from you? Council members, et cetera?
Yes, definitely our council members, of course, law enforcement, a number of our constituents, as far as now with data, which is really big, tracking data. So that's really big. We work with some of our department members on gathering as much data as possible, so we understand, as demographically, the lines have changed. They're not the same as they once were when I grew up and you grew up. I mean, LA, I know the community that I grew up in, it looks totally different now. So really understanding the data counts, so we're leaning on those, those departments to understand the data so we can more effectively work with, identify what needs to be done in areas such as immigration, such as our transgender community, our communities of religion, right? So we're really trying to understand, because a lot of folks have left LA, a lot of new faces coming into Los Angeles, communities are just changing. Community I grew up with, Crenshaw community, completely different community now as it once was. So.
Yeah, and it's also a very expensive place to live. So
Absolutely.
there's
Absolutely.
the issue with
cost.
with the cost of living here. So when the commission gets together, what's the process? I mean, you meet before you have these community outreach. So how often do you meet, and how many commissioners are there? And
we meet every month.
Okay.
And before we meet, we always go over our agenda. And I'd love for your listeners to please tie into our link under the City of LA for the Human Relations and Civil Rights Commission. And you can dial in. We love for their interaction to actually dial in. We represent the community. We want to hear from the community so that we are better equipped as we're putting together programs, identifying needs, initiatives. We can actually include the community's voice in those decisions.
Do you actually hear things that you hadn't even thought of before from somebody who would call in saying, I need more trees in my neighborhood, or I need to have, I need to have a closed street so the traffic is okay, or I need to have more police or less police or something? Do you hear from people that they say this?
Yeah, we you'd be amazed. We receive some amazing feedback from the community that we'll look at each other many times and say, that makes complete sense. Why don't we think of that? Many times it's something that's literally, it's right there in front of us, but
unless you hear it, you don't know it.
Exactly. And we may be looking at a certain program that we think is a concern, but speak to the person that's trying to figure out where the next meal is going to come from, or speak to the person that is homeless under a freeway. We may think that an area is important that we're discussing or debating about, but someone that doesn't have heat, someone that doesn't have air, someone that doesn't have water. It's important to hear from the community and listen to their concerns. It has a way of really balancing out the direction that we take as a commission.
Are you guys working on a new report right now? Because I know this one. What are you working on?
That is a great question, and because I've got a colleague. We're actually literally we're looking within the next few weeks of having our retreat, a strategy meeting, and just identify where we left off. And I'll be getting an update on that, where we're at that report, because that report's key. We've got to continue that. That's critical. it was interesting. You know that you're onto something good when you have people that are throwing apples at it. It may sting a little bit, but sometimes it's good to flush out that concerns and conversation to actually get to the bottom of what the resolution should be.
So many of us obviously have been working virtually. Has that been a good thing or a bad thing with working with the commission? Has it made it easier to communicate or more difficult?
I think, in a lot of ways, I think it's been good. Even though we love to get together, you have to understand our commission is very much roll your sleeves up and get it done, be engaged with our community. But what's been positive about it has been not all of our commissioners, for various reasons, can show up in person. And so we've been able to really cast our net wide, pull them into the conversation when before they wouldn't have been able to show up in person. Mm-hmm. So from that standpoint, I think it's been a good thing virtually. Also, utilizing this tool wisely, then again, we're really able to cast that net and to pull more individuals from the community into the conversation. We're discussing the youth. We'd love to get some youth to call in, to get more stakeholders to call in, and that's an easy way of getting their participation is through that platform, a virtual platform.
I think it's really important to get the message out that the voice is relevant, because Absolutely. I think so many people think, well, it's just me, who cares? Nobody really cares what I think. But to understand that it's imperative that those voices are heard in order for change to be effective in any way. Absolutely.
Again, we are managed by the mayor's office. They actually listen to every single meeting, and communities understand when they call in, not only do we hear their concerns, the mayor office hears their concerns, and that's where a lot of decisions are made. And as busy as City Hall is in these offices, there's nothing like getting a phone call or a message directly from the community that we are charged to serve, to create action. And so, no, you're spot on.
All right, so this is completely irrelevant in terms of the commission, but one of my favorite things about you and your bio is that your employees, in the Denny's restaurant that you own, were fiercely loyal.
Oh, absolutely.
I love that idea.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And so how do you engender that feeling with people that you work with?
That's a great question. I wouldn't say it's really it's not me, it's what people bring to the table. I wish there were a serum that you could pour into a bottle and just give folks to bring that fierce loyalty. You can't. I mean, I'm grateful leading our commission with my colleagues, the commissioners that serve. The loyalty that they serve. We have commissioners that have been on there just a few months, and we have commissioners that have been on there for many years. Same thing when I had the Denny's. I mean, had just individuals that love what they do, and that's when you know that you're onto something. When you love what you do to the point where you don't even have to pay me a cent or anything. I just want to be a part of making others happy and making a difference, and that's what it boils down to. And that's what we're doing. So we're making a difference in what we do in people's lives and the communities. At least I'd like to think that we are.
I have no doubt at all, and I'm sure your father is very, very proud.
I hope he is. He has some large shoes to fill. So.
Well, it was wonderful talking with you. And if people want to get more information about the Human Relations Commission, what's the best route?
The best way to reach us is civilandhumanrights.lacity.org/commissions. Kind of long, but that is the website. It'll list all of our meetings upcoming and programs that we're working on, and the best way to connect with us so we can hear from the community.
All right, I'm going to keep reading your reports. They're really interesting.
Thank you so much.
It was great to talk to you.
Thank you for having us.
And that's a wrap on this LA Currents.